The story begins in the 18th century, where a group of villagers had gathered around a tree. At the center of attention was a woman tied to the tree, accused of being a witch and possessing dark powers. After much discussion, the villagers decided to kill her. She was bound to the tree, and an iron mask was placed on her face. The villagers then set her ablaze. As she screamed in agony, no one came to her rescue. Amidst this chaos, a man in the background was seen performing a ritual, holding a doll and attempting to transfer her spirit into it. Whether he succeeded or not remained uncertain. The woman's death was gruesome, and the man calmly continued his ritual, hiding a deeper, mysterious truth. Fast forward to the present day, we meet Gary, a reporter who was once quite famous and had a massive fan following. He worked for a top company but recently fell from grace due to spreading fake news. After the truth came out, Gary lost his job and reputation. No one trusted him anymore, leaving him with only small, insignificant stories to cover. His lifestyle changed drastically, and he became financially strained. One day, Gary received a call from a man named Ben from a remote village. Ben claimed to have news worth covering. Hoping to revive his career, Gary spoke to his editor and traveled to the village. Upon meeting Ben, he was told about strange marks on Ben's cow. The marks appeared sinister, possibly related to black magic. However, when Gary examined them, he dismissed them as pranks by passing travelers. Disappointed by the insignificance of the story, Gary felt his trip had been wasted. Just then, a priest named Hagen arrived. Upon seeing the marks, Hagen suggested they could be linked to dangerous black magic. This revelation hinted at something far darker and more mysterious awaiting Gary. Gary, skeptical of the strange occurrences, decided to leave the village. As he walked away, he suddenly heard a peculiar sound. Following the noise, he arrived at a tree under which there was a hidden cave. Curious, Gary reached into the cave and pulled out an old doll. It was ancient, dating back to the 18th century, the same doll we saw at the beginning of the story, and the same tree where the woman was burned. Gary, unaware of this eerie connection, identified the doll as a relic from the 18th century. Seizing the opportunity, he concocted a fake story to regain his lost fame. He deliberately broke the doll, pretending it held a dark and mysterious secret, and staged photographs to suggest a supernatural event. After collecting enough footage, he left for a nearby hotel to rest. Late at night, as Gary was driving under the influence, a woman suddenly appeared in the middle of the road. Trying to avoid her, Gary swerved and crashed his car. Fortunately, neither he nor the mysterious woman was hurt. Stepping out of his car, Gary approached her, only to see her walking deeper into the forest. Intrigued and concerned, Gary decided to follow her. The woman led him to the same tree where he had found the doll. She sat there, murmuring strange words. As Gary got closer, he heard her say, "Take my soul as soon as possible." Terrified, he hesitated but then mustered the courage to ask her what she meant. When Gary touched her shoulder, the woman screamed and collapsed, unconscious. Moved by humanity, Gary carried the woman back to his hotel and called a doctor. Upon investigation, it was revealed that her name was Alice, and she was a relative of Father Hagen, the priest he had met earlier. While administering medication, the doctor disclosed a shocking detail: Alice was mute and couldn't speak. This revelation stunned Gary because he distinctly remembered hearing her speak at the tree. Confused and frightened, he couldn't comprehend how this was possible. The mystery deepened, leaving Gary questioning his own perception of reality. Gary, shaken by the events of the previous night, decided to confide in the doctor about what he had witnessed. However, the doctor dismissed his claims, pointing out that he had been drinking and driving. She warned him to be grateful that he hadn't ended up in jail. Accepting her logic, Gary assumed he might have made a mistake due to his intoxicated state and chose not to dwell on the incident. The next day, after proper medical care, Alice had recovered and was in the church with Father Hagen, who was praying. Gary, meanwhile, was discussing his plans with his editor. They decided to stay in the village longer to explore more potential stories. If no newsworthy events occurred, Gary was prepared to fabricate stories to benefit himself. As Alice sat in the church, she suddenly began hearing strange voices. The sounds became so overwhelming that she abruptly stood up and began walking out. Father Hagen, alarmed and concerned, followed her, along with a crowd of onlookers. Gary, noticing the commotion, joined them, hoping this might lead to a story he could document. Alice, who had been mute since birth, walked straight to the burned tree with the hollow beneath it, the same tree tied to the 18th century legend. To everyone's astonishment, she began to speak. Her first words were, "Set us free completely, we want to return." The crowd, including the doctor, was stunned. Gary's earlier claim was proven true. Alice, who had been mute all her life, was now speaking fluently. No one could explain this sudden phenomenon. Seizing the opportunity, Gary began documenting the events, convinced that this story would be a groundbreaking revelation. Gary shared the idea with his former company's manager, hoping they'd see its value. However, the manager rejected him outright, citing the damage Gary had caused with his previous fake news. Their company had suffered significant losses, and several employees had lost their jobs because of him. Undeterred, Gary and his editor decided to start their own news channel, focusing on the strange occurrences in the village. Meanwhile, the doctor conducted multiple tests on Alice to understand how she was able to speak. Every test confirmed the impossible. Alice's newfound ability to speak defied all medical explanations. Gary's pursuit of the story and the unfolding mystery around Alice hinted at something far more sinister and extraordinary waiting to be uncovered. Gary was now dealing with a bizarre situation. One night, he had a vivid and terrifying dream. He found himself near a waterfall, but instead of clear water, it flowed with blood. Suddenly, a demonic spirit emerged from the crimson waters and lunged toward him. Startled and terrified, Gary woke up in a cold sweat. Confused and shaken, he decided to keep the dream to himself, attributing it to stress or his recent experiences. The next day, as he continued his reporting, news of Alice's miraculous abilities spread rapidly. People began flocking to the church, believing that Alice could communicate with Mother Mary, who was close to God. They brought their sorrows and ailments, hoping for miracles. Father Hagen tried to manage the growing crowd, insisting that Alice couldn't meet everyone. However, Alice defied him, stepping forward to address the crowd and leading them to the burned tree. Among the crowd was a handicapped boy who longed to be cured so he could play like other children. Standing near the tree, Alice suddenly began seeing visions of a face. She spoke to it and then approached the boy, asking him to try walking. The boy hesitated but made an effort. To everyone's astonishment, a miracle occurred. His weak legs, paralyzed since birth, suddenly gained strength, and he began walking on his own. The crowd was left in awe as the event unfolded before their eyes. There was no doubt anymore, Alice could indeed communicate with Mother Mary and perform miracles. Gary documented the entire incident and quickly uploaded the footage online. The story went viral, drawing attention from major news channels worldwide. Meanwhile, a businessman named Gale, who owned a large media company, learned about the events in the village. Addressing his staff, he explained that similar claims had been made in the past where individuals alleged they could speak with Mother Mary. Curious and intrigued, Gale decided to delve deeper into the story, sensing it might hold significant potential for both faith and business. Back in the village, the growing frenzy around Alice hinted at more extraordinary and possibly dangerous revelations. Gary, now entangled in the events, couldn't have anticipated how profoundly his discovery would shape the lives of everyone involved. The unfolding events in the village had taken a dramatic turn. Gale, the media mogul, decided to investigate the truth behind Alice's supposed connection with Mother Mary. He sought the expertise of Father Diego, a skeptic who had dealt with similar claims before. Father Diego laid out a simple yet critical test. If Alice truly had the divine ability to heal, she should be able to cure a patient suffering from a lifelong illness, and the healing must happen visibly and instantly. Only then could her claims be considered legitimate. The village became a hotspot for reporters, all eager to interview Alice. Strangely, Alice only responded to Gary's questions, ignoring everyone else. This behavior sparked rumors that Alice might have a special connection with Gary, further boosting his reputation. Intrigued by the growing buzz, Gale and Father Diego approached Gary for a discussion. Father Diego remained skeptical of the entire situation, but Gale saw potential in the story. He proposed that Gary take the lead in documenting Alice's experiences. Gary, seizing the opportunity, offered to manage the story exclusively for Gale's company. He even assured Gale that he would take full responsibility if anything went wrong. Convinced, Gale allowed Gary to proceed. Meanwhile, Father Hagen grew increasingly uneasy about the attention Alice was receiving. His concerns weren't just about her well-being but also the authenticity of her experiences. He believed that divine visions and miracles weren't granted so easily and feared something sinister might be at play. Determined to uncover the truth, Father Hagen returned to the burned tree where it all began. To his shock, he found the broken doll that Gary had claimed to destroy earlier for his news story. As Father Hagen examined the doll, a chilling presence emerged behind him, a spirit, dark and malevolent, seemingly intent on harming him. Alarmed but composed, Father Hagen placed the doll back on the ground and retreated to the church for safety. Back at the church, Gary decided to interview Father Hagen to add more depth to his coverage. However, the priest was reluctant to provide clear answers, his unease evident in his demeanor. Gary pressed on with his questions, determined to uncover every detail, but Father Hagen remained tight-lipped. The tension surrounding Alice, the doll, and the supernatural occurrences continued to build. While Gary sought to capitalize on the story, Father Hagen grappled with the foreboding sense that something far darker and more dangerous was yet to reveal itself. Father Hagen was deeply concerned about Alice because he suspected that anyone who witnessed Mother Mary's miracles or became her devotee wouldn't survive for more than a year. He had personally observed several such cases. This was why Father Hagen was scrutinizing the entire matter very carefully. The next day, Alice was shown singing beautifully in the church. Diego and Gary were also present, observing everything. Gary asked Diego why he didn't believe in these miracles. Diego simply replied that he had seen such miracles before and even exposed some of them. Until proven otherwise, he neither trusted them nor approved them. While Alice was singing, Father Hagen began struggling to breathe due to his lung cancer. His condition worsened to the point where he was on the verge of death. Desperate, he gestured toward Alice for help. Alice calmly asked him, "Do you believe in Mother Mary?" Father Hagen replied, "Yes." Alice then placed her hand on his chest, and within moments, Father Hagen's condition completely normalized. His breathing became steady again. To investigate the incident, doctors conducted an X-ray of Father Hagen's body, which revealed that his lung cancer had completely healed. No one could understand how this had happened. Diego, who had witnessed the miracle with his own eyes, finally began to believe that Mother Mary truly existed. Gary covered this news and shared it with the public. The news quickly went viral, and the place became widely recognized as a holy site. Prominent tourists and scientists began visiting the area for research. In a short time, the once small village gained immense fame. Due to the news Gary had shared, he started receiving offers from several big companies. Even his previous company offered him a position again. However, Gary demanded a high-ranking position, saying he would only return if given the role he deserved. Despite all this, Father Hagen continued to sense that something wasn't quite right. They went to a house near the same tree, where they found a book with images of a demon on its cover. The illustration suggested that the demon initially helped people and portrayed itself as equal to God. However, the real sinister game would begin later. Father Hagen became increasingly worried for Alice and all the people she had healed with her miracles. Meanwhile, Gary, who had grown arrogant, was having a conversation with the doctor. The doctor questioned why he used to fabricate stories, to which Gary replied, "For money." However, he insisted that everything he had reported about the village was real. Gary also mentioned the small doll he had found near the tree. He admitted to breaking it for a story, which seemed to have set everything in motion. Gary noticed something unusual about the doll. It appeared to be from the 18th century, but it had a date written on it, February 32nd. Since such a date does not exist, he was baffled about its meaning. The doctor explained that in ancient times, such dolls were used to imprison evil spirits. However, she wasn't sure whether this was entirely accurate. Gary and the doctor decided to explore deeper into the forest. During their walk, Gary saw the same waterfall he had seen in his dream. The doctor revealed that this land had been under the church's control for many years. Gary was terrified as his dream seemed to be manifesting before him. Looking into the waterfall, he saw the same shadowy figure from his nightmare. Overcome with fear, his mind began to spiral with dark thoughts. To clear his doubts, Gary went straight to Father Hagen's room. To his horror, he found that Father Hagen had committed suicide. Gary had no idea why he would take such a step. The authorities quickly recovered his body and declared that the cause of death was a heart attack, as they did not want the church's reputation to be tarnished. In reality, however, the truth was far darker. The entity that Alice and others believed to be Mother Mary was not a deity at all. Father Hagen had discovered the truth about Mary from the book he read, which revealed that Mary was a dangerous demon. This demon, who had once been considered holy, used her powers to deceive people, solving their problems initially through black magic, and then slowly absorbing their souls to grow stronger. As more people fell into her trap, her power intensified. Gary constantly interrogated Alice, trying to uncover more about her, but during a slowed-down analysis of the videos, he noticed a black shadow. Frightened, he immediately went to consult the doctor. Together, they investigated the same house where they had previously found the book that Father Hagen had read. There, they discovered the full truth about Mary, the demon who was once thought to be holy. When the demon realized that both the doctor and Father Diego had discovered her true identity, she began attacking them. However, Father Diego used ancient chants to temporarily repel the dark spirit. This event solidified their belief that Mary was not a divine being but a powerful demon. Determined to expose the truth, Father Diego, along with Gary and the doctor, led the people to the place where Alice was showcasing her powers. Initially, they tried to convince everyone that Mary was a demon, but Alice, under the demon's control, resisted until the end. Eventually, the demon revealed herself fully, engulfing the place in flames and attacking everyone. In the midst of this chaos, Alice, risking her life, tried to protect Gary from the demon's wrath. In the process, she was fatally injured, leading to her untimely death. Just before her demise, the dark power began to fade, signaling the end of the demon's reign. Since she transferred her powers into Alice's body first, solely to gain people's trust, after her death, those powers weakened, and the demonic spirit began to fade away. As soon as Gary reached Alice, she had already passed away. However, he realized how significant her actions had been. Gary genuinely prayed to God, asking for her to be brought back to life because she hadn't yet seen the world. Within moments, Alice's breath returned, and she came back to life. From that moment, Gary understood that there truly is a God, and it was their intervention that ended the dark spirit and saved Alice's life. Gary made a decision that from now on, he would never publish false news and would move forward with hard work and integrity. Thus, our story concludes here.